welcome everybody who's here at the training center. We've got a small audience here at the training center with us. And welcome everybody online. Thanks for joining us. So this is our October technical meeting, even though it's not October yet. Normally we do these the first Tuesday of the month. We just have a conflict next week, so we moved it ahead a week. I hope it didn't mess too many people up. If I can figure out how to run the screen. There we go. I just have a couple of housekeeping things, and then we're just going to jump into the meat of the meeting. Sorry, I got to let a few people in here. So, training opportunities. We do have our EA 101 coming up next week. Those of you who are coming to the class should know all about it. You should have received emails with assignments. Make sure your assignments are done this week. And look forward to seeing you guys here at the training center next week. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to me this week so I can help you with them. Anybody aware of any other training opportunities that this group should have on their radar? If you ever come across something, or if you ever attend something you feel like it was really valuable, please shoot me an email, because we can share that with the rest of the group and make them aware of some of those opportunities as well. Under my new business, or really housekeeping stuff, I just wanted to remind everybody, so Dalton, before he left us, put together a new QCI form, and we put it out there. That is the current QCI form. So if you are QCIing stuff and you are not using that form, please start using the form today. If you need to find the form, it is on our resources page under QCI form. So please use it. And then, as you can see there, my question for you guys is, how is the new form working? Is anybody having any major issues with it? Anybody have any good experiences with it? Anybody have anything they want to share with that? All right, well, please use it. I have received a little bit of feedback on the form. A couple of the comments that I've gotten talk about it being a little more complex. And I'm not sure at this time if it's just that those who are using it are realizing, oh, the QCI responsibilities are bigger than I thought they were, or they are a little more complex, or if there are some additional complexities in the form. If there is anything in the form that is causing you problems, or if you found a more streamlined way to do it, share it with me. I'd love to hear it. Like all of our forms, we anticipate that this form will evolve a little bit over time. We'd like to refine it and get it, make it into something that works really well for the program. I did send out an email, I think 2 weeks ago, to get feedback on just our forms in general. So if you do have some feedback and you haven't filled out that survey, look back in your email and send us a little bit of information. Let us know how you're feeling about that form or any other forms that may or may not be working well. And then, speaking of forms, we came across one. Let's see if I can get it on the screen here. That we just wanted to show you guys, and I probably should have pulled up the form that had been filled out, but I think you'll get the idea. We just saw this in Bragg's client files this year, and we thought it was kind of cool. And I asked Zack to send me a copy of it, so I'll actually send this out with today's notes, if that's okay. So if anybody likes this, or you want to, use some version of it, then I'll send you a copy today. But Bragg basically just has it's just a PDF, and they'll come in to each of these boxes and add photos, and then they have a big spot next to it where they can add some text. And when they put that in the client file, that is a really good way to document your photos. So if that's something that would help you out, I'll send it out with today's notes. All right. Jump back in here. I Yeah, that was all that I had for housekeeping stuff. Before we jump into the meat of the meeting, does anybody have anything that they would like to bring up for this group? All right. Well, so the meat of the meeting today is actually it's an issue that we've noticed for the past couple of years on our technical monitoring that we need to get better at. And so what we did is we actually asked a couple of the auditors who we found were doing a really good job at measure justification, and we've asked them to come and talk about it. So we have Steve Fisher from 5 County down in Cedar City, St. George area. And then we have Zack Mitchell from up in the Cache Valley. And the two of them have been working together for a little while, put a presentation together for us. So we really appreciate all that they've done to put this together, and also to drive up here to the training center today. So please give them your attention and please participate, ask any questions. Don't be afraid to be involved in their presentation. So if you guys want to come on up here, and I'll get out of the way. And whichever one of you is going first, maybe introduce yourself so that those who've never seen you before know who you are.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm Steve Fisher, and as Matt said a minute ago, we're actually really counting on participation as we go through this. Some of this is built around class discussion or group discussion as far as how we're going to solve these problems. So the first thing, as Matt said, this is about measure justification. And so our training objective this morning is understanding what justification of additional measures means. We're going to identify and understand the itemized costs, additional measures. So as we go through this, itemized cost, additional measures, those terms are going to be interchangeable. We know at the end of the need audit, when we get to that page, the additional measures, itemized costs, this is what we're getting into. How to properly justify these measures. That's the main point of what we're going over today, how to properly justify these. So we've all gone through monitoring. We've all had Matt and Dalton come down and monitor our audits. And on one of the items, A01, TAC 13, were itemized costs allowable per the guidelines. So this, I think, is where this is coming from, or why this training is necessary, because like we talked about in the last technical meeting, this was something that was on the decline across all the agencies. We're not doing as well at this as we have done before. So the question is, why is this important? Why is it important that these itemized costs are properly justified? What could be, I guess, one of the negative outcomes of not properly justifying the measure? He asked to the room and the audience listening.
You probably lose funding if you're constantly spending money and not being able to justify it.
Yeah, these one of your costs could be disallowed. You could put something on the audit, spend money on it, and then it could come back and say, well, this was not justified. This is not allowable, and then your agency has to eat the cost of that. So proper justification. This will give the guys that are looking at, whether it's the guys of the state or the guys of the DOE, proper justification to see why we're doing what we're doing and not have to look into it further. So the question that we're asking ourselves is why? Why was this cost needed, or this measure needed? Why is it justifiable, and why are we carrying it out? So one of the things that Matt showed Zach and I as we're going through this, is that a lot of the justification in the comments section was really an explanation of what this is or how it's going to be done. So for example, if an agency wants to put in a direct vent water heater into a mobile home, in the comments section it would say direct vent water heater to be placed in mobile home. And then we already know that's what's happening. We know that's what's going on, but we don't know why. So that's what we're getting into. It's not about what's happening or how it's going to happen, but why is it happening? So before we get into that, we're going to do a quick review. As auditors, we should know these things, but we're going to identify the types of additional measures. So we're going to take a minute and review what these different types are. So we have health and safety measures, and I kind of thought that maybe we'd go into the guidelines and look these all up, but in the interest of time, since we're probably going to run a little bit late anyway, I'm going to just kind of review these real quick. I put the guideline reference in there for each of these, but just for review, a health and safety measure on the guidelines, what it tells us is they must be included on the energy audit. The rationale for performing each health and safety measure and its relationship to the energy conservation measure that necessitated it must be clearly documented in the client file. Should be entered as an itemized cost so they appear on the input report under the additional measures. And then it says the rationale and related ECM must be noted in the comment section. And then in the guideline there's an example of how to do that. I think it's always a good idea to go back on your own spare time, kind of review the guidelines, become familiar with these things. Take a look at each of these and the example that's provided. The next is the incidental repair measure. These are repair measures which are necessary for effective performance or preservation of one or more ECMs. The IRM category is intended for measures that is not typically part of the installation of an ECM and is outside the manufacturer industry standard for installation. The comments section must include the written justification for the measure. It should indicate which ECM it is incidental to, along with an explanation of how each IRM is necessary for the effective performance and preservation of ECM. Non-audited measures, we're all familiar with these. This is the most common one that we come across. The only note that I want to point out about these is that the comments section must indicate why the measure was allowable without an SIR. So as we're reading through these guidelines, and then the next one is CRMs, which we're not really going to get into much because that is opens a crisis file on the job. But as we read through the guidelines, you'll notice that each one has a little bit different justification. And so if we look at the table that's provided in the guidelines, this gives us a good framework of what needs additional justification and what that justification is. So if we have a measure and we find something out in the audit that needs to be done and it doesn't come out in the recommended measures, and we know we need to add it in, first thing we got to do is identify it. What kind of measure is this? What kind of repair work is this going to be? If it's a health and safety measure, does it need additional justification? Yes. It must document why it's necessary and allowable, unless it's one of the Holy Trinity, as Wade used to say. Crisis measure, non-audited measures need to show why they're allowable without an SIR. Incidental repair measures need to be documented what it relates to, what ECM it relates to, and why it's necessary for that ECM. So before we go forward with anything else, is there any questions? Anybody that has any questions about any of these types of measures, or how to identify them, or what kind of justification they need? We're going to get more detailed in justification, obviously, as we go on, but just a quick review of the different kinds of additional measures that we come across.
I know that's not true. We've got monitoring reports that say you can't do that. So come on, speak up, people. I'm going to shame you into this one way or another. I'll start calling you out by name.
Still nothing.
Just my warning shot across the bow. We'll see what happens.
All right.
So when we get to the need audit and we're going through and we've done everything and we're putting in our additional measures, we've come up with a list of questions that we should ask ourselves as we're going through. We've figured out, okay, we need to add an NAM to this audit. We know what it is. We're entering it in, And now we're going to ask ourselves these following questions. Is the additional measure allowable under program guidelines? So first and foremost, can we do this? Are we really allowed to do what we're wanting to do? If the guidelines don't let us, then we can't do it. Is the additional measure properly identified? So have we figured out really what it is? Are we trying to replace a window as a incidental repair measure? Are we trying to put repair a front door as a health and safety measure? Is it allowable? Is that what it is? Is the additional measure tied to an ECM? Some of these can be tied to ECM and some can't. So do you have that figured out? And can substantiating documentation help justify the measure? So like if you've got the photos that you need or a guideline reference in your justification, sometimes it's helpful to say in your comments, this window needs to be replaced due to these circumstances and following guideline whatever, and then and that little reference can help justify what it is you're trying to do. And then finally, if you were a third party reading this, would you understand why it's necessary? So take a step back from your audit, put yourself in the party or in the place of somebody else that's looking at it and say, if somebody handed me this and I'm looking at it, would it make sense? Would I understand why they're doing this, and would I understand that it's allowable or not? Because it makes sense to us in our head. We're the ones that are right in the middle of it, so it all makes sense. But if somebody handed us something that we had no reference to whatsoever, we'd never been in the house, we're just handed an audit report and we look at it, would it make sense? So that's really kind of what we're looking at, because when these things go up to the state, when these things go up to the DOE, they're going to just look at it from that perspective and say, well, why did they put that water heater? That shouldn't have happened. Or why did they do that roof repair? We don't normally do roof repairs, and that doesn't make sense why that happened, unless we learn to properly justify these things. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to look at some examples of things that have come across in audits. We're going to take a minute and identify what's going on here, what we need to do, and then how to justify it. So I'm going to have Zach come over and start going through some of these examples.
Well, good morning, guys. I'm Zack for Bragg. I imagine everybody knows me. I'm not sure, but anyway, it's been pretty quiet out there, guys. What's going on? Anything exciting to do?
Just this training.
Well, let's hope we get more participation going on moving forward in the class. So anyway, first things first, as you guys can see, we have a water heater picture here. And can you guys tell me what's going on with this? Whoop.
There's not a single auditor here that sees anything with that picture.
So they've got some things being stored around it.
Stored around it, yeah.
On and stored on it.
All right, what are the things we need to do before just looking at this water heater? Like, if we come up to the audit, we look at this water heater, can we tell that it's going to fail worst case draft? Do we know it's going to have high CO? What are the things we got to do with it?
Really want to check the top of the, see, you got plastic caps that are melted, thing like that.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good way of telling if it's been backdrafted before you guys get there. Yep. Kind of look at it. All right. So when we first get there, we want to document our stuff. So I like to take a lot of pictures. Pictures are great out in the field, guys, and that's why we also have that awesome that 04 thing that Matt showed you. I like using that a lot. It describes a lot of my pictures. So I like to take my pictures, and then what are we gonna do next when we take a picture of this water heater? What's the next step?
Well, you turn it on, put it in mode or something.
What testing are we gonna do?
Worst case.
There we go. So yeah, we're gonna do a worst case draft test on it, and there's our document. And then let's see now what's wrong with it. You see there on that worst case draft form. What happened with it?
Not drafting.
So, and how do we document this? Exactly, exactly, guys. With that worst case draft form. And then on the right side, we have Matt's awesome health and safety itemized cost form. I love using this form. I thought he's done a pretty good job on it. And so as we can see, we're going to document first with our worst case draft form. That's one document. That's one way of documenting this. And then the next one is we'll use Matt's health and safety form. So in this slide, I'm going to show both of these quite a bit, what to do. And then what's our main goal of this whole class? What's the main thing what we're trying to talk about? Exactly. We're trying to justify what we are doing. So here is our two justifications ways of justifying this is we have our worst case draft form. And then over here, we have our health and safety. And it's kind of simple. So how we're going to fill this out is we just click right here. It filled worst case draft. In the next part, we're going to just move over here and we're going to replace it as a what? Health and safety. And we're going to put in a direct vet because it failed the worst case. So that's how we're going to document it, guys. So moving over the needs. So how are we going to put that in? Where are we going to write there in the measure name? HSM. We're going to replace this with a direct vent water heater. And what are we going to do after that? And you guys are quiet. I feel bad for Matt and these guys when they get up here, man.
I go to the comment box and start putting it on the comment.
Right, now our main goal about this whole class, guys, is typing in the comment box. What did it do? This is how we're going to justify it, guys. Right there. That's the whole goal. Is we're going to write in the comment box what it did, what happened, and what are we going to do? All right. Anyway, so there we go. There in the comments, health and safety. We're going to replace this water here. It failed the worst case draft on the audit, and we're going to replace it with a direct vent water here. See the test in the file. That is a great way for them to, okay, it failed. I'm going to look for the test now. And we want to make sure that that test is actually filled out, guys. You know, Matt has showed me there's a few times where he went back to go look for the worst case draft form, and guess what? It wasn't even in there. It wasn't even filled out. It's important, guys, that you got to do the whole piece of the puzzle to get there. So we're going to take a photo of it, do our testing. There's our justification. And then we're just going to document it, simply document it into the neat. It's pretty straightforward. All right. Next picture. Next slide. So as I showed you guys, we did it as an HSM. But as you guys can see, I did this as now a CRM. Now, why would I do that? Why would I decide to change to a CRM?
As far as like, I guess, a lot of
This is Matt's. Maybe we didn't have health and safety funds. Now we gotta do is a CRM.
Good job. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for chiming in on that. Exactly, guys. We got to keep track of our funds, right? So how are we going to do that as an auditor? How does that way? How do we know what our funds are at? What are we going to do?
Get with your director and QCI guy and see how much funds you have left.
Well, the client should be pre-qualified before, you should know if it's like you qualified DOE only, something like that, so that kind of helps.
Right.
You on that.
That's the beginning, right? We got to make sure that they are, depends on what funds you got to use at the beginning, correct? But also we want to make sure we are talking to our director or somebody that is over our finance stuff. We're going to say, hey, how is this looking, guys? How's our money sitting in the health and safety funds? Are our funds looking pretty low, or do we need to do this as maybe a crisis instead? Right? Hopefully everybody's kind of talking to their director over that, like your funds. Because if you don't, how are we going to know? We just don't want to accidentally label something and come to find out that Brad's going to get the bill and go, what the world? And then he's going to email back your director and he's going to say, what's going on here, guys? So All righty. Yeah, next slide. Here we go. All right.
You're pitching them, Zach. They're just not.
I know, right
I
there.
want to tell you, buddy.
It's pretty quiet, guys. All right. So what do we got going on here?
We got a furnace
In a bedroom.
In a what?
in a bedroom, in a closet.
In a closet. And what's wrong with that?
It shouldn't be there.
But it is. Why?
But it
Why
is,
should
yeah.
it be there?
Can't be pulling combustion air from the bedroom, to the bathroom.
So
Exactly.
Do that.
It's time to take that furnace out of the closet.
Right? Okay. That sounds.
Or today you have to accept it if the furnace wants to. If it wants to wear lipstick and rouge and high heels,
Yeah.
you must let it.
I don't have to do anything, Brad.
Maybe it's going to identify as a water heater and not a furnace, all right?
All right, guys, we're gonna have a little bit more talking here. And okay,
That's
so
because it went dirty.
what? Oh yeah.
So as dirty as how deep your mind is in the gutter, Angela.
All right. So how? Okay, it's in a bedroom. Okay. So here's another picture of it. It's kind of a blurry picture. I apologize. Yes, it's the furnace in the bedroom. And like how they said, we cannot be pulling combustion air from a sleeping room or bathrooms. And so what are we going to do with that? How are we going to justify this? First off, what do I do? What did I do here? I took a picture that it's in a bedroom and it's in a closet, clearly, and there's no even door on the closet. It's going to be pulling air from the sleeping room. So what are we going to do next?
Figure out how to correct it. You can correct.
Correct it. What else? What's the other forms we're going to do? Yeah. Yep. Health and safety. Matt's awesome. Health and safety form that he made.
hey, real quick, it's good to have a lot of pictures from different angles too, to show exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly. Like once I just took a picture of just that front of that furnace right there.
Yeah, then we would have no clue where it is.
Right. And then how would they know it's even in a room? So the key thing is also, yes, you got to take good photos. You can't just take up close photos and be like, yeah, it's in a bedroom. Pictures are key, guys.
I think it was Brock that chimed in at the very beginning when he said furnace in a bedroom can't be there, right? And it was my man back here that finally came up with the right terminology. A justification, furnace is in a sleeping room. That's not a justification. If it's a direct vent combustion appliance to a combustion chamber, it can be there. So that does not provide the justification. It was his explanation that it was drawing combustion air. That might seem like minutia or semantics to some of you. You see a furnace and you just know. But if you don't write it down, it doesn't matter what you know. Haven't proven anything. Understand the difference of what these gentlemen are trying to teach you today. It's not that we don't believe you're capable of doing what you've been doing in the field. We've known this all along. It's that you're not closing the loop with the documentation, the paperwork. The why to this class, I see there's like 4 or 5 coordinators on here. Last couple weeks, I have reminded them repeatedly, with the new money, one of the conditions is Department of Energy will come to Utah and they will monitor our work. That first example of the water heater, and Zach mentioned no worst case draft in the client file, even though it was your justification for replacing that water heater as an HSM. DOE's answer to that, cost is disallowed. Labor and fringe. You're spending $3,000 roughly on a water heater, plus your time as an auditor to justify that measure. Your executive directors will then have to, in some cases, go to your board to get approval to give us the money back so that we can return it to the Department of Energy and the Treasury. I have had to experience that multiple times in my 14 years in this program. I have yet to meet an executive director that is happy when they go to the board and have to come up with money to give back. That is your why today, people. You can joke about furnaces coming out of the closet, and that's nice because I needed a good laugh, as you can tell. But we need to get you guys on point here. We are going to be taking a test in a few years. We want to pass that test. This is a critical item on that test. We are giving you the answers to the questions on that test. We now resume our regularly scheduled program.
Like what Brad said, guys, put that in heart. You gotta put that in play. Make sure you guys live that by the code, okay?
So here's a good example of what we were talking about a few slides ago of the what versus the why. So hopefully that point is starting to come across, the difference between what it is and why it's not allowable. We know what it is, and if we put furnace in the bedroom, that's obviously what it is, but why is that not good? Why is that wrong? Because it's wrong because it's pulling combustion air. So as we go through these, kind of start getting in that mind frame of identifying, yes, for what it is, but why are we going to do what we're doing?
All right, so guys, next slide, we're going to show, okay, this is an allowable cost. And right, this is in the guidelines, as you guys can see, E7.5 under here. So, and right here, this is where we're going to find that. As you guys can see, it says gas appliances in hazard or prohibited location. Gas fire appliances shall not be located in sleeping rooms, bathrooms, toilet rooms, or in spaces that are opens to such rooms or spaces unless appliance is a sealed combustion or direct vent appliance. Okay, so if we cannot move it, right? If we cannot move that furnace, in a lot of houses we can't, right, guys? Most time we're like, it's not really an option to be like, oh, we're gonna totally move it out of this room. So we're gonna put a direct vent in place for it to pass. So there's your why. Okay, guys. So what are we going to simply do after this? We're going to transfer that over. So we're in our
into the notes.
into the notes. We got our pictures. We got our justification why, and now we're going to reference and put that code right there on our explanation to need. So that's how we're going to fill it out. We're on our first tab, guys. I mean, all the auditors should know how to fill this out, but. Okay, all right, here, I put it as a CRM. And I'm going to put in the comments right there. Hey, guys, you gotta make sure. This is the whole reason why we're doing this class, guys. What are we doing?
Justifying.
Justifying. We're going to fill out that comments section every time. So that's what I put down there for that furnace, as you guys can see. Why? There you guys go. The why. Yeah. Tell me what's going on with this photo.
Slightly elevated.
Slightly elevated? Slightly?
That's the understatement.
Hopefully, you guys see this problem going on? Is that safe? That's totally normal, right?
Been converted to
Yeah, the red hose is beautiful.
So you like this? Also plugged. Guys, this is like a ticking time bomb. It's kind of scary.
To press that gauge goes to that many digits.
Right? After this, my gauge actually had to get sent in. It actually killed it. It actually killed my poor gauge. Yeah. So anyway, I'm hoping you guys can understand why we are replacing this water heater. This is kind of a no-brainer, guys. So how are we going to fill what? So here's our justification. We got our pictures, right? What are we going to do after that?
Sorry, Zach, can you ask that one more time?
Yeah. So we have our pictures. Now what forms we're going to fill out, guys? What are we going to do again?
Pull up the same stuff, right?
Right. Anybody else besides Jordan answering? Hello?
Safety form. Heard somebody say health and safety.
Health and safety form, okay. Right here, once again, we're going back to this sheet, guys. I hope every auditor is using this form, guys. So what are we gonna click on here? We're gonna put high CO. And we're gonna check the box, high CO. And what we're gonna do? It's an HSM. We're gonna replace this wire here. So we're gonna move it over to the NEAT. HSM, wire here replacement. Yes, it says HTP. In our agency, we use HTP, so that's how I filled it out. Got our cost. And then the comments. Make sure you get those comments, guys. It's our main goal, this whole class. We gotta justify our measure. Fill out the comments. So Matt and good old Brad will be happy. So that we can move forward, get paid.
Oh, like I'm gonna be happy. Come
All right. All right, guys. What's wrong with this one? This is like, we see this all the time.
Not properly ventilated dryer exhaust.
Exactly.
Let's vent into the outside.
I mean, it is going outside. Exactly. What's wrong with it? It's going out.
Vent hood.
Got that awesome flex over there. Right there. Coming out. I mean, it's coming out. So how are we going to justify this? What are we going to write?
Hole is too big.
What? All right, auditors. Come on, there's got to be more auditors on
The
this.
question is
check.
it the program's problem to solve? Do we own that?
Gotta look at the guidelines.
No, I'm asking you right now. Do we own that?
My question is if it's vented to the outside properly with the termination, but it has flex line, do we have to touch it?
I heard,
I don't see anything in there that says you have to replace foil duct.
you're correct, Mr. Dowling. All that time in the coal mine didn't hurt you after all. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, it did.
What's the other way we're going to do with that, guys? What's the other thing by us?
So do we own it or not? Let's go, folks. Chime in. Sounds like Mr. Dowley's saying maybe we don't own it. Anybody else?
They did it properly, so yes.
We do not own it unless it's causing an issue, like a backdrafting issue.
Well, if you rerun the dryer vent, it'll help you get your air sealing number by closing a window.
Ah, yes, that's another good key. Close the window, guys.
very
Get
true.
off our board, or
So what have these guys been asking you? So where is the why? If those of you who have chimed in to say that we own it as a program, give me your why.
Because we can't air seal the house that window, so we own it.
So where on the health and safety table does it say that?
What if that dryer is a gas appliance and you shut the window for your air sealing number and you're just gonna vent that inside?
and what does that create? Wait, what happens if that hose falls into the house, guys? When it just gets shut? What's going to happen now?
Just gone.
Moisture.
Moisture
To
problem.
the inside.
So do we own it from there?
Somebody give me the why. I've heard a lot of talk. I've heard one person hit around at the why, but that's it. And this is exactly my point. I'm not saying that you don't understand that there is an issue there, but you're failing to be capable of articulating the why. Why is this a problem with the program that we need to expend funds to repair it?
The only thing I can come up with that says clothes dryers and exhaust fans must be vented to the outdoors. Venting installations or repair is an allowable HSM. E.7.17.A.I.6.
Your county has chimed in and spoken.
All right, there you go. Woohoo!
So one of the things I like about this example is that we've heard three solid, two and a half solid explanations of the why. So it's not always the same thing. We can come at it from different approaches, but there's always a why. But it can be different things. It could be a health and safety measure. It could be an air sealing issue. There's different ways to come at this, but it's not just because it's venting out a window, but there is a reason. But it kind of depends on where you're coming at it from your audit. It depends on, well, maybe this house you've got $3,000 of air sealing money that you can address it with. Maybe you don't have any air sealing money to address it with, and you can address it with health and safety money. So there's different approaches to it. It's a matter of why you're doing what you're doing.
So, yeah, that's a great example right there. So, guys, another example is, what other form are we going to use to justify this? We've seen it a bunch of times on my other slides. So what one are we going to use? The health and safety
form.
The health and safety. I want everybody to be saying that. Come on, everybody say it. 1, 2, 3.
Health and safety form.
Ah, there's a little more talking. I like it. Oh, geez. All right. Okay, so next slide. Okay. Okay, we're gonna fill it out like this, right? We got the health and safety, shorten the dryer vent termination, and we're gonna put that in the comments. Is that all good? I said not good.
There's no why. Telling you what you're doing.
Ah,
No justification.
exactly. That was a
Gold
trick question.
star for my team.
What? Gold star. That's you guys? That's your team?
Yeah, that's good.
All right. Okay. Here we go. Health and safety form right there. It's not vented the outdoors. I mean, it is, but it's not. And right there, we're going to just revent it. HSM. This is how we're going to justify, guys, right there.
So could that also be?
What?
Could that also be termination as missing or damaged?
Yes, it could.
Yes. Yep.
And
Yeah,
then is ASM on that health and safety form air sealing measure?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, guys. I mean, that's how we fill it out, guys. Matt has made great examples here for us. We just feel if we follow along this health and safety form, you just basically kind of carry over the nose right over into the knee, guys, and then that's our justification. He's done a really good job for us. So just simply move it over into the knee and take your photos, document it. Okay, what's wrong with this photo? That is an awesome door, right, guys? There's nothing wrong with that door.
You can drop mushrooms,
Totally. Wow.
It's not sealed good. It's not a real door. It's a piece of crap.
I say let the blower door testing tell you if it's a good door or not.
Okay, so should we just do some air Q-ons or some jam up and a sweep around it, guys, and do some foam wedges? That should be good, right?
Not on this one.
Our hands together.
Jam up in a
Well,
sweep.
guys, I think that's all we're gonna do. We're gonna walk away. We're gonna caulk it.
If you can take that door up, keep it intact, and make, I don't think it's stay together.
Got these special 4x8 quarter pads or 4x8.
Well, who do we do the service more here for? Are we doing a service more for the cat? Or are we gonna do more service for the client?
The client.
There we got the client, guys. Hopefully nobody said the cat. But that's kind of funny. Somebody said the
What I'm
cat.
gonna do is I'm gonna say, let's get you a new door. Then I'm gonna kick through that thing.
Yeah. We're gonna do the Kool-Aid man through that door, right?
Oh yeah.
Already did.
Yeah.
But if we don't have the money to replace that door, what could we do?
What could we do?
Talk to our financial person.
I say we foam it, jam it up, sweep it, done. Cat has its scratchers still. That is the most important part.
That's exactly right. So okay. So how are we gonna how are we gonna justify this? What are we gonna write for on this door?
Close the door. Let
Oh,
the cat's out.
well, the cat's out. What are the other things that this door is actually missing? Can you guys see other things missing on the door?
Doorknob, like a real
There's no
locking
doorknob.
handle.
There's not even a proper lock on this door.
Don't worry, this guy installed 19 doors in one day.
Yeah. No one actually had the privilege to.
I hate this house, so I can't.
You better come with me so I don't get electrocuted.
Yeah, I had to go outside so he didn't get away.
Well, so how are we gonna fill this out, guys? What are we gonna do? Health and safety?
I think this was a non-audited measure
And why would we do it as a NAM?
because it's a pile of garbage. It should have gone.
Pile of garbage. Yep. So
I don't know why, but I know we did it as an NAM.
we did. NAM, guys. This is NAM. This is not on measure, but I mean, obviously, if you guys look at the door from the pictures, that door needs to be replaced. It's falling apart.
Oh, that was a door?
That was a door. Okay. You know, you guys should like this comment right here. There you go. Yep. There you go. There's your comment. And as you guys can see, also, I wrote in here to install a rain gutter on there. Now, if you do it as an NAM, can you guys do it, but add the rain gutter in there? What the cost? And we need a cricket button on this thing. I hear the crickets chirping.
Yeah.
I think you guys need to add your little cricket.
Can you go back to Steve's slide with this board question? on?
Okay, so we're gonna go back to these. Okay, we're gonna. How do we go back there, Matt?
So
Escape.
Hit escape. Should minimize the.
Mine's just not
You
minimizing.
should be able to.
Sorry, Matt. You might want to
Try stop presenting.
stop presenting.
All right. I would just love to apply.
Okay, Matt's gonna take a
questions
second.
to. I'm gonna. You guys are doing fantastic. I don't want to jump in the way at all. Let's see.
Yeah, it doesn't want to. All right, here we go, guys.
Hey Zach, I have a question.
Zach.
What happens if you enter it as an NAM and it gives you an amount and you give a reason? Is there any reason why it would come back as not justifiable?
Sorry. Well, again, sorry.
If you entered it in as an NAM and wrote, it gave you the amount and you gave a reason in the comment section, would it ever come back as not allowed to do that? Would it change? Would you have to go into something else other than an NAM?
So, like, what, Matt? Say,
All right. Is that Jordan?
stored.
Jordan, are you asking, would the audit ever tell you, sorry, that you can't spend that much money on it?
Yeah, is that what that's designed to do or no?
It's not, it won't do that. Because it's a non-audited, you're basically just adding a measure to the itemized cost tab. And the audit knows that those are things that it's not trying to cost justify, so it's never gonna tell you that it doesn't, that one doesn't allocate back.
So within this framework of what we're talking about, I think that NAMs are probably the best example to get what we're talking about, because in the guidelines, it says we have to justify why it doesn't have an SIR. So if we're putting this door in the audit as we should, we put it in as leaky and bad condition, and then we run the audit and it doesn't come back as a ECM with an SIR on it, but we know it needs to be replaced. The audit's just telling us that it's not giving us funding for that. So according to the guidelines, we have to go back and say, okay, this is why we're doing this without an SIR. So then now we're looking at this door going, okay, we've got to replace it. Now we've got to justify why, if the audit's telling us it's not going to let us do it, but we're going to do it anyway. How are we going to get away with this?
So
Would you do an IRM for the rain gutter?
Oh,
NAM?
if you were gonna do the door as a NAM, do you ever do anything as an IRM to a NAM?
The answer is over here. It just needs to speak. up.
It's not an ECM. It's not an ECM.
Yeah.
There you go.
IRM.
But how do you justify a rain gutter over a door that you NAM'd?
Ask that again, Carrie, then.
How do you justify a rain gutter being installed over a NAM'd door? Like the ECM for the door can be air sealing, but your rain gutter wouldn't be air sealing.
Let's ask the person that did it.
So the reason why it is an NEM versus an IRM, because the need, right? If it was an ECM, if it paid back, right, then you would have to add an IRM to the door, because you want to properly. What's the purpose of an IRM, guys? When you go back, we're trying to do what with the door? Preserve the door. We want to preserve that measure. So that's how it's justified if it was an ECM. So we do an IRM with that ECM with the door for a rain gutter to preserve that door. Now, as you guys saw, I entered it as an NAM. So the door did not, which is crazy, but how the need is set up, it did not pay back as an ECM. So I had to do it as an NEM. Now with an NEM, you add the cost to the door, and it is allowed. Because we're trying to still, once again, preserve the door.
You can write it as two separate NAMs if that is easier to wrap your head around. But the point is, as Dan said, since it's not an ECM and it wouldn't then require an IRM, we're talking about using our line heat money here. And you can just write one measure, which is to replace the door and put rain gutter above it to preserve.
Everybody got that? Check.
Yeah, this is a good point to go back to. So the beginning of the program, the fundamentals of the program are that we conserve energy, right? And then we can do health and safety measures, which are justified. That's paraphrasing federal regulation, federal guidelines that we operate this program under. And so the minute you go beyond anything that is an energy conservation measure, that question that was asked by Jordan, you've stepped outside the audit tool, which is our methodology for justifying energy conservation measures. So you're no longer in that realm of justifying saving energy. Yes, as he said, that door is an awesome piece of modern art, and it needs to go in a landfill. But if the audit tool doesn't justify it as an energy conservation measure, you're stepping outside the bounds of the program, and therefore that justification must be much stronger. The documentation, while the picture does tell 1,000 words, you still have to connect the dots to the funding source that you're going to pay this for. And that's what this really comes down to. And so if you're missing that point, no matter what you think, then you don't have a leg to stand on every time to pay the bill.
The question I wanted to ask with this slide here is the very first one. So if we are going to replace this door as an NAM, is that allowable under program guidelines? It is allowable. Can anybody tell me where in the guidelines it says we're allowed to do that?
Where are all your measures and guidelines? Good answer.
I'll pull out my phone and look.
All the measures are in one spot.
So this is going to be in section B8. And you look up, there's a section in there on doors. And in that section on doors, the very first bulleted item is going to say, this is allowed as an ECM when it has an SIR. And then the very next line is going to say this is allowed as a NAM without an SIR, as long as you have the other substantiating documentation to justify.
Photos, guys, photos.
That's all I want to do with that stuff.
All right. Let's go back down. Where were we? Core door.
You're supposed to drop that. Whip it out.
All right, so how are we gonna fill it out, guys? Let's go back to that. So what are we gonna do? Let's refresh. We're refreshing. Did everybody learn? Yeah. All right. Hey guys, right there. That's how we're gonna do it again. We gotta have the comments in there, guys. You gotta comment what's going on with that door. All right. Birdhouse down.
House.
All right. So here we go. What's wrong with this one? Anything.
Where all the magic happened, right through that window. After that.
Have an incomplete thermal boundary.
Incomplete thermal boundary. And what's the other thing missing on this? Yes, that's one reason.
Incomplete air barrier also.
Guys, what are we missing right here? The component, right? We're missing a whole slider. And like how Matt over there said, it's incomplete thermal barrier. So how are we going to justify this one, this window? How are we going to justify this? ECM?
Come back. It's very leaky window, right?
Vinyl window. It's double pane.
Big hole in it.
Big hole in it. You could put leaky, right? Very leaky. It's very leaky. Once if it doesn't pay back.
You do probably IRM to the air sealing measure and
What?
IRM to the air sealing measure.
IRM? Can you do an IRM?
You can still do it as an NAM too.
Okay, you can do it as an NAM. Yeah. Well, what's another way we could do this?
Couldn't you do it as a crisis as long as they're qualified?
You could also do this as a crisis. Exactly. So, how are we gonna fill this out then? Back on the need. Right here, guys. What are we gonna put in there?
Before we jump into this, let's find this in the guidelines real quick.
Let's pull up the guidelines.
Because there were a couple of ideas that got thrown out there, but not all of them are correct. Let's see if I can. So what are we trying to?
Real quick, in the lull, I've got to go get to my next appointment. I want to thank these guys for doing this. As Zach said at the very beginning, standing up and talking is not easy. Standing up and talking to just the camera is brutal. So we had some folks here on site today, and standing up and talking to a group that isn't participating is also cruel as well. Please continue to engage and know that someday you might be up here too. Thanks for everything you guys are doing. We'll see you later.
Bye, Brad.
So we got a window with a big giant missing pane, right? These are the guidelines for the weatherization assistance program. Section B8 says you can replace prime windows if the measure, it says the measure requires an SIR 1 or greater to use your DOE money, to use your light heat money, and when we had them, to use your weatherization state funds. So could you do this as an NAM? According to B8.8.A, we don't meet that requirement, right? Because we ran it as an ECM and it's not paying back. Bullet number C says only low E double pane vinyl windows may be installed with E value of 3 or less. All windows must be labeled. So basically, we've already got past the reasons why you could replace a window under the weatherization program. The only way to replace a window in the weatherization program is as an ECM. So now what do we do? We looked at the other program that we run, which is the crisis program. So where do we find information about crisis? Should be somewhere in section C, right? And then I'm just going to hit Control F and start looking for the word window again, is usually what I do. So this says under the crisis program, during the course of authorized program activities, agency staff may identify work that is allowed under the crisis service call program and take necessary steps to mitigate the issue. And item number 3 says you could do windows and doors. The crisis program is to take care of home energy crises. The weatherization program is pretty much our ECMs. We're running weatherization program to find opportunities to save energy, right? If you can't do that, then look to the crisis program because you're probably staring at a home energy crisis. A giant hole in somebody's wall is a home energy crisis, for sure. And you can fix that under the crisis.
What Matt said. Everybody got
Yep.
On
So
the health
this,
and safety form, it says we can also NAM it, so.
I gotta fix
I
that.
mean,
Yeah, somebody else figured it out to me a couple weeks ago. It's on my radar.
So,
okay, thank you.
sorry, the slide that Zach has,
let me go back to that.
he hasn't filled anything out in that, and that's on purpose so that we can fill that out together.
Together.
So now we have this, how do we get back to that?
Well, hold on. Matt's got this going on over here. There we go.
Okay, got the blank page from the need audit here. We know it's going to be
Oh,
a
whoops. Sorry, guys.
CRM window replacement, and then now down in the comments, we've identified the measure, what it is, and what kind it is. Now, how do we justify it? Why are we fixing this window?
We have a home energy crisis.
Okay, yes, it's a crisis, but what did Matt just say? Yeah, how to gag? Just say, yeah, how to gag? That's bad feedback.
But there was a large hole in the house.
There's a large hole.
Constitutes a home energy crisis.
What's the whole point of the program, guys? What are we trying to do? Trying to save energy, right? Trying to keep the heat and the cooling inside the envelope. We have a big hole. Are we going to be able to do that? No. So we're going to do it as a crisis again, guys. Crisis. We're going to replace this window because it's going to complete our thermal boundary, guys. That's what we're going to write in that comments.
So that didn't come back as an ECM?
No.
Okay.
No, I did not.
This one's a weird dilemma because you're staring at a double pane low-E window.
Right.
And there's really we've never put anything in the guidelines that says if you come across a low-E window and it's missing a pane or it's broken or anything, then you can do this or that. I know I've given a little bit of guidance to different classes where you have a broken pane and it's now a single pane window. You could evaluate it as that. Yeah, but this approach is clean because you've got clear guidance that says you can do this as a crisis. The only time you're going to really run into issues with windows and doors are when they are DOE only, and then you have to lean more towards that kind of stuff.
So let's do another example. With that window, say if that slider, guys, was in there, the slider was there, and the window was really cracked out. What's another way we can fix that problem? With the low, so you got a vinyl window, it's cracked on the inside, really jagged glass, right?
Do health and safety and just do a glass replacement.
Good. Or what's another way we can do it? That's one way. We just do a unit replacement, guys. How much is a unit replacement? Does anybody know? Glass unit. You throw it under air sealing too.
You've got a big giant hole in your pressure boundary. You've got funds to invest.
So units are like 100 and.
You can't, you gotta be careful because the way we've worded our guidelines.
I guess that's true.
You could do a unit replacement and that there is a separate section. So I was just reading in the guidelines on section BA under prime windows replacement. But there is a separate section that actually allows you to do.
Just a unit, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I ran into a bunch of times where I've ran into cracked glass with that in a vinyl window, double pane, right? It's all busted up. Just simply order just the unit, guys, and just pull out the unit, put the new one in place. And it's cheap. It's not that much money. It's another good way of doing it. So, everybody clear on that? Tough crowd, tough crowd. Tough crowd. Name that movie. Oh, geez, why is it not moving? All right, here we go. Now, here we go. What do we got going on here? We see this all the time, right, guys?
Oh boy.
Oh, boy. What's going on there, guys?
Um,
Probably light.
Don't look like there's any heat shields.
Heat shield. Right?
Health and safety mitigation.
Not health and safety.
Ah, shiz.
Can't do it as health and safety.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Here we go.
IRM to attic insulation.
IRM, right, guys? This is like the only time we're kind of really getting to use an IRM. That and what? Rain gutters. Those are like the main things we're going to use as IRMs. So knob and tube wiring. And so how are we going to write that up? Back to lovely Matt's awesome health and safety form here. So where are we going to click on here? Knob and tube, guys. We're going to click that button. And then what? IRM. So how are we going to carry that over to the neat? Pretty simple. IRM.
Click on it.
Knob and tube. Click on it. Fill it out, right, for you? IRM, and then we're going to put in the comments again.
Yes.
Basically, what do you add on the health and
Tied
safety
to
for?
the attic insulation.
Add to the attic insulation to replace it. There we go. You remove it, incidental to the attic insulation. All right, guys. So what did we learn?
So one thing.
I got a question.
Okay.
So if the health and safety form doesn't say you can do it as a CRM, are you able to?
That's not listening.
Go back to your guidelines and see if it's listed under.
Well, I just noticed on some of the items it has CRM as an allowable measure, but on knob and tube it didn't.
You are correct. But I don't know the answer to your question right now because I want to say that Brad has allowed a few knob and tubes to be done under the crisis program. Let me do some homework on that. So the question is knob and tube allowed under the crisis program, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
The answer is yes.
And Brad's there, the answer is yes. Is
Right.
that with written permission or are they allowed to go ahead and do it anytime?
We haven't put a cost control on it yet. It's a hierarchy of funds. We want to first cover it as an IRM. If it doesn't go as an IRM, then we want to cover it as an HSM. And then as a last resort, we can do it as a crisis measure. understand the rules and the reason behind crisis are first and foremost to make sure nobody freezes to death because they don't have heat. Any of the other activities we do beyond heating crisis are at some point negotiable because that is, again, beyond the primary purpose of that program. So it's a funding level decision that the agency coordinators need to make. If a particular agency is experiencing a higher demand in heating or other crisis expenditures, it might not be in that agency's best decision to expend 10, 12 grand on knob and tube. And so you don't.
I guess what I was trying to get at is trying to show that some of the measures on that form have the CRM option. Could we get it updated so that all the measures that are allowable CRMs are on there?
I can take a swing at that, but I'm gonna need some of your eyes to double check it as well. Because you guys are facing these questions more often than I am. So I've got notes to add knob and tube as a CRM and to remove window replacement as an NA. You guys notice anything else? Send me some notes. When I push out a draft of this, spend some time thinking about it, make sure we get it right. One point of clarification on knob and tube. Why would we do knob and tube as an IRM instead of an HSM?
What's the main reason why?
It's the only reason why we're touching it is for the inflation.
One at a time.
The answer is a policy issue. DOE told us, the grantee, that we have to tell them which of when we have measures that meet both definitions of a health and safety measure and as an incidental repair measure, DOE said you cannot have your cake and eat it too. You have to tell us, you're always going to do them as either one or the other. You have to make a list and tell us which one you'll do which. So we made it easy. We said, DOE, if it looks like a health and safety measure and it also looks like an IRM, we will always do it as a health and safety measure, with one exception. And that's when it comes to knob and tube. And the reason why I made that one exception is something that Kate was asking me about just a minute ago. And he said, what's the cost limit on knob and tube? Well, an IRM has a built-in cost limit based on how much energy you're saving at that house. If you're only saving $1,000 worth of energy at that house, then to do knob and tube mitigation will never pay back. Because if you're going to do an IRM, then you must still have a cumulative SIR of the whole package of measures. If you're only saving $1,000, then of energy, total cumulative energy saved $1,000. If it costs $2,000 to do knob and tube, then you now have a cumulative SIR of 0.5. Basically, the audit's going to tell you it will not pay back. So Brad is absolutely right. You always follow that hierarchy of measures. In this one case, the IRM would be the first thing you check. HSM is off the table because DOE said you have to pick one or the other.
All right, there you go. All right, guys, I think that was all I had. For sure. Make sure.
What if there's vermiculite up there?
What happens if we have vermiculite?
Get out, get out, get out.
Get out, get out, get out.
I don't know.
Put it in a glove, take it across the client's entire house in front of Brad. And we good.
All right.
That's a great question. I feel like we're working through that a little bit with our weatherization ready pilot that some of you guys are aware of. But yeah, pretty much if there's vermiculite, you don't want to do any work in that area, test it. If it comes back negative, you can work in that area. If it comes back positive, don't do anything to draw any of that vermic into the house. And then you've got to make a decision about whether or not you're going to defer the whole house or if you can actually do something effective. That help on vermiculite.
But everybody out there just look at this morning. I had a question of why are we replacing a water heater at the client's house. Zack had it written down. I was able to look at his comments. It failed worst case. Went and seen that. No other questions needed. Because I'm looking at this water heater yesterday when I was with the guys, and I was like, it's in a closet. It's a mobile home approved water heater. Why are we replacing it? I was able to go get on my Google Drive, look at Zach's input report, and right there it said. So it's not just for Brad and Odd for the mats or whoever's coming to take your stuff. For your QCI, it's for your field supervisor to look at so that they're not chasing down the question. The answer was right there. I was able to look at the input report and had my answer. I didn't have to call 1,000 people. I didn't have to, nothing.
Oh, Mark. Thank you. Awesome. Anybody have any other questions or comments? We thank you
I want to
guys.
go back to that. Hang on a minute. I want to go back to that vermiculite real quick.
Yeah.
Just in general, in the past, where we did not have any really solid funding source to address the vermiculite problem, we adapted the rules of the program to allow us to still do something. It wasn't the best, it wasn't the perfect, but we could make some level of impact to the client with the policy wrote the way it was to work around the vermiculite. As this weatherization readiness funding is proving its worth, and we're seeing an opportunity to start capitalizing on these homes, I would tell you, I'm not quite ready to put it in writing, but we're probably going to, in the near future, look at actually getting rid of some of those workarounds for that vermiculite, and we will inherently push them to deferral so that we can access the readiness funds. And so it may push the client a year or two back in the queue in some cases if the funding remains limited. But fundamentally, we will have a larger impact for the client than serving them now with our workarounds and then not being able to go back to the home for 15 years. So, just like everything we do in this program, it's a cost-benefit analysis. In the past, that cost-benefit analysis was to do the workaround. Now, it's starting to look like that cost-benefit analysis is to actually go through deferral and wait until we have some readiness funds to address the problem.
Boy, your coordinators have had a few conversations about readiness funds and stuff, but it may be new. That may be a new term to some of you. But yeah, essentially we kind of have a little bit of a pilot going on right now, figuring some of that out.
And we're trying to find more money to put in that pot.
Again, thanks to Steve and Zach for all they've done to help us out today. You guys did a fantastic job. Thank you guys for joining us. Hope you guys have a great day. We'll talk to y'all later.